Everything in the Lord's creation has some specific utility. All matter, however insignificant, has a particular purpose and effect. This is true also in regard to the thoughts or sentiments that present themselves to our consciousness and then pass away. We little know what effect such notions produce in us, or in what lies their utility, for which reason they were created within us. If you think of a piece of copper, you know its usefulness. But when you consider a single thought, what is its utility? Analyze that query. As the world is composed of atoms and molecules, so the inner being, the nature or character of a person, is composed of atoms and molecules of thoughts. If you wish to understand the quality of your inner light, trace the growth of every thought, and in the balance of your judgment, weigh its relative utility. Today we shall weigh the sentiments of doubt, belief, and faith. These are the crux of controversy in religion. Great teachers exhort people to believe and have faith in God and Scripture, and warn against the potential devastation of doubt. But without discrimination, the utility of this counsel may not be understood. Since nothing has been created without having some use, I cannot agree with scriptural moralists who at the very mention of doubt turn up their noses at an angle of 120 degrees. Instead, let us judge why the principle of doubt has come into the world at all. Wherein is doubt bad or good for human beings? Unless we analyze the psychology of doubt and of belief and faith, we cannot reasonably adopt or reject these sentiments on the basis of their being beneficial or destructive. By analysis, we find in the concept of doubt a constructive as well as a destructive element according to its application. I need not discuss at length the destructive element, for its adverse effects are commonly acknowledged. Because of its potential harm, some religionists, particularly those who hold blindly to dogmatic beliefs, advocate the eschewal of all doubt in favor of unquestioning acceptance. But to avoid doubt is to choose not to think. Destructive doubt is paralyzing. It inhibits constructive thought and the power of will. It blocks receptivity to the beneficent workings of higher forces and laws in the universe and to the ever-ready-to-help grace of God. It produces an inner disquietude and sense of hopelessness. It resists progress and rejects ideas on the whims of ignorance, prejudice, or emotion. But let us consider the constructive element of doubt. If man could not doubt, he could not progress. The predominance of matter before our eyes in the form of objects and beings prevents our perception of the whole of truth. It is by doubting the preeminence of matter that the existence of God is established. If matter, a conglomeration of atoms, is all there is, then how do these invisible particles hold a parliament and bring forth and govern such an organized universe? It is impossible that inanimate atoms could put themselves together and produce intelligent beings. So the acceptance of God, an intelligent consciousness as the creator of this world, was established from materialism by applying the constructive, progressive element of doubt. This constructive element is the scientific current of thought by which we question in order to know what is true. Without this, if we merely accepted things as they appear to be, man would become as animals. Some ancient civilizations held the view that the sun, moon, and stars were deities governing their lives. Man outgrew that concept by the process of doubt. Through constructive questioning, such belief was found to be wanting. If man could not doubt, he could not progress. The world would be mired in ignorance. We would not be able to differentiate theory or fallacious arguments from the truth if we did not question. It is therefore right to apply the laws of reason. Doubt decides a hypothesis. Scientists take such a theorem and investigate it along with their ever-present examiner, Mr. Doubt. Nothing is taken for granted. The proposition is carried to a conclusion to see whether it works or not. If it doesn't, it is set aside or restructured. If scientists remained satisfied with the status quo of knowledge, there would be no furtherance of civilization. There is a great lesson therein. In regard to religion, scientists should employ the same openness of the constructive element of doubt with which they approach their research in science. For far too long, science has been locked into the destructive element of doubt in dismissing religion offhand as superstitious dogma. If it were the aim of the consortium of construction workers only to demolish all defective buildings rather than reconstructing them, or without replacing them with improved structures, that would be disastrous. It is the same with those who would do away with morality and religion, leaving behind no structure for the housing of divine principles that can be proven essential to the welfare and happiness of human existence. Of course, even the destructive element of doubt may be necessary to rid us of long-held errors, but if that process obliterates truth as well, then it is harmful to humanity. Constructive doubt moves us toward truth. Doubt is dynamic energy that should be properly harnessed to move us to progressive actions. If by constructive doubt we destroy some of our cherished theories, even that is better than just blindly and dumbly following others. The blind leading the blind. Constructive doubt in regard to divine matters will move us toward truth more quickly than will dogmatic belief. The latter makes us lack the clarity of mind necessary to perceive correctly the truth already given to us by God. Dogmatism confounds the ability to fathom the depth of the verities preached by the great ones, such as Jesus in the New Testament and Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Religion, like science, should be given a proper test. That is how the God-knowing rishis of old attained their realization. They investigated, found, and proved for themselves those invariable principles that demonstrate and make manifest the eternal reality. The great masters ask us to believe, but they do not say we should not use constructive doubt to question. Suppose some error is printed in Scripture. Instead of "do not steal," the word "not" is left out so that it reads "do steal." To accept blindly is to accept errors that creep in, the slip of the pen of the writer, the error of the printer. Apply the test of reason. If you can analyze ideas with unprejudiced respect and discrimination, you will more readily apprehend truth and discern what is untruth. You are endowed by God with the power to understand if you but use your instruments of intelligence according to the laws He has given. Treat religion with the same spirit applied to the sciences. Without doubt and investigation, many will not reach truth. Reasonable questioning will destroy the shaky supports of dogmatic fanaticism and help to build instead a strong foundation of beliefs whereon the superstructure of faith might rest. Faith begins with constructive belief. Belief and faith are often used synonymously, and thus not always correctly. Faith is something much more than mere belief, as will be shown. In belief, as in doubt, there is a constructive and a destructive element. Applied constructively, adherence to valid beliefs leads to realization. Noumenal truths cannot be understood by the sensory mind. Phenomena can be interpreted by the intellect from sensory experience, but not the substance or noumena underlying it. This requires inner enlightenment. Thus does the teacher who has attained realization say to the undeveloped disciple, "Until you are able to understand, believe and follow me." That does not mean blind acceptance. Constructive belief has reason within it. Reason and feeling confirm that there is some truth behind every valid belief. If one can gain access to his inherent discriminative intelligence, he can arrive at that truth, the inner comprehension of truth that is attainable only by the spiritual development of the soul's intuitive powers of perception. Until then, there might be contradiction between the devotee's reason and the master's realization. So true masters must ask their disciples to believe, to take for granted certain concepts on their authority, knowing that in time they can realize those truths for themselves. Such is the principle of any investigation. If a mathematics professor explains calculus to you, but you close your mind and say you do not believe him, because at the moment you do not understand, then he cannot teach you. First you have to take pencil and paper and obey his instruction. Then if you do not get the promised results, you will be justified in doubting. But you must be careful before you pronounce judgment. Be sure you do not commit any error in solving the problem. So you see, you must begin with belief. The fundamentals of belief. Belief is a state or habit of mind in which trust, confidence is placed in some person, thing, or doctrine, such as a persuasion of the truths in religion. Belief is a conviction or feeling of the truth or reality of that which is believed. The elements of belief are assent, credence, assurance, reliance, persuasion, conviction, faith. Belief, faith, persuasion, conviction are present singularly or in combination in the idea of assent. Belief and faith differ chiefly in that belief as a rule suggests little more than intellectual assent, while faith implies total trust or confidence, as in one whose persuasion or belief has ripened into faith. A persuasion is an assured opinion, an idea of which one has convinced himself, as it is my persuasion that he is a dishonest person. It implies that this assurance is induced by one's feelings or wishes, rather than by argument or evidence. Conviction stands for a fixed and settled belief, as persuasion has been forged into a feeling of certainty. Credence gives substance to belief. Something must be considered believable to be held as true. Belief depends also on reliance, which is confidence in the thing believed arising from supportive evidence. Implicit in belief are the elements of will and imagination. Without willingness, one cannot believe. And since belief is an uncertain waiting in the hope of obtaining a result, it involves also imagination. John imagines that he will be successful in the jute business. Hence, he is said to believe in his business venture. The elements of will and imagination in belief make it a powerful force for good or ill. Injudicious beliefs seem a wastage of good energy. Belief in a deceitful person, a failing business, or a false doctrine seems to be a sheer wastage of man's good energy through its wrong direction. Such injudicious beliefs achieve little more than bitter experiences. A hypocritical friend may long command our belief in him. A doomed business may similarly persist in our minds as worthy of support, but sooner or later they are sure to lose our belief through the revelation of facts. Hence, in material things wrong beliefs are liable to be less wasteful, since our minds are bent toward tangible results. In contrast, concerning spiritual matters, our mental attitude often remains vague and visionary. Teachers or doctrines exhort us to believe and have faith, while offering very little explanation or understanding as to the nature of this virtue and how to possess it. Blind acceptance is the general rule and the only recourse for most adherents. Hence, belief and faith in connection with religious life are least understood. Their dynamic power, for the majority of religionists, remains something nebulous, indefinite, unculturable, the possession of a gifted few on whom God has bestowed his grace. For the many others, belief in spiritual matters is employed blindly because things of the spirit are deemed mystical and beyond human ken. An erroneous belief, if held to without scrutiny, develops into tenacious dogmatism. A belief that is disproved changes from dogmatism to unbelief. On the other hand, if one believes in a true doctrine and follows it persistently, that belief gradually crystallizes into conviction and faith. So we see that a belief, whether false or true, is provisional. It can only be temporary, for it is subsequently metamorphosed either into dogmatism or unbelief, or into faith. Rudimentary or immature belief not secured in truth is of three kinds: blind, steady, and strong, and curiosity awakened. A. Belief born of emotion or sentiment begins with high-sounding faith, as "I will follow you unto death," but it ends in violent denunciation when tested with criticism or contradiction. B. The followers of the second group add tenacity to blind belief. They live and die in the same emotional convictions, even if wholly erroneous. This is little more than the savage state of existence, which is controlled by superstition. C. Persons are a bit safer with beliefs that begin and end in curiosity. When they find out that their inquisitiveness has led them down a wrong path, they quickly give up that pursuit and are delighted to seek after something new. Beyond these three is investigative belief. This is based on logical acceptance. It always keeps its eyes and ears open, ever ready to inquire about anything to which it has been attracted by persuasion or interest. This form of belief, however, can easily develop into a habit of fickleness. It may capriciously give up not only that which is erroneous, but also that which is true. The genesis of faith. What is needed is investigative belief with sincerity and reverence, followed up with persistence in true beliefs, or at least in those beliefs that constantly manifest convincing results. Through the aperture of patience, drop by drop, the chemical of truth enters and crystallizes such belief into solid faith. But unless belief is founded on truth, it will not sustain the conviction that produces progress toward faith. Faith may manifest itself in many areas of belief if there is truth inherent in one's sincere convictions. Firm belief or trust, as in a person, thing, doctrine, or idea, such as faith in God, faith in medicine, recognition of spiritual realities and moral principles as supreme. Historical faith, as in the truthfulness and authority of scriptural narrative and teachings. Or practical faith, through the acceptance by the intellect, affection, and will, in God's favor, extended to man through his divine emissaries. The aggregate of that which is believed, a system of religious beliefs as the Christian faith or Vedic authority. The result of faith is the stable quality or state of faithfulness, fidelity, loyalty. Have intrepid faith despite life's enigmas. Life, its substance and purpose, is an enigma, difficult yet not unknowable. With our progressive thinking, we are daily solving some of its secrets. The minutely and scientifically calculated devices of this modern age are certainly remarkable. The proliferating discoveries of physical science are creditably giving us a clearer vision of the ways by which life can be improved. But in spite of all our devices and strategies and inventions, it seems we are still playthings in the hands of destiny and have a long way to go before we can be independent of nature's domination. To be constantly at the mercies of nature, surely that is not freedom. Our enthusiastic minds are rudely seized by a sense of helplessness when we are victimized by floods, tornadoes, or earthquakes, or when, apparently without rhyme or reason, illness or accident snatches our dear ones from our bosom. It is then that we know we really haven't conquered much. In spite of all our efforts to make life what we want it to be, there will always remain certain conditions introduced on this planet, infinite and guided by an unknown intelligence, operating without our initiative, which preclude our control. At best, we can only work and make some improvements. We sow the wheat and make the flour, but who made the original seed? We eat the bread made from the flour, but who made it possible for us to digest and assimilate it? In every department of life there seems to be, in spite of our instrumentality, an inevitable divine dependence without which we cannot get along. With all our certainties, we still have to abide an uncertain existence. We do not know when the heart is going to fail. Hence comes the necessity of a fearless reliance on our true immortal self and on the supreme deity in whose image that self is made, a faith that acts without egoism and plods on merrily, knowing no trepidation or constraint. Exercise absolute fearless surrender to that higher power. Never mind that today you make the resolution that you are free and undaunted, and then tomorrow you catch the flu and become miserably sick. Don't weaken. Command your consciousness to remain steadfast in its faith. The self cannot be contaminated by sickness. Maladies of the body come to you through the law of self-created habits of ill health lodged in your subconscious mind. Such karmic manifestations do not disprove the efficacy, the dynamic power of faith. Hold to the helm of faith, and mind not the buffeting of untoward circumstances. Be more furious than the fury of misfortune, more audacious than your dangers. The more this newfound faith will work its dynamic influence on you, the more your slavery to weakness will wane proportionately. Not a corpuscle of blood can move, nor a puff of breath enter your nostrils, without the commandment of the Lord. Hence, absolute surrender to God is the criterion of faith. This surrender is not laziness, expecting God to do everything for you. Your utmost effort to bring about the desired result is also necessary. Rather, it is a surrender through love for God and veneration of His supremacy. No matter what the obstacles, I would work to the last breath in me in complete surrender to God, but I would never surrender through cowardice or fear of failure. Chest, faith is ever secure, direct perception of truth. Faith not only produces results in healing or in other successes, it is also the power that reveals the outworking of spiritual laws that underlie all so-called miracles. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hoped for impossibilities will be realized through the power of this faith, which believes without seeing, which believes even in the face of all odds. Faith is realization itself. It harbors no destructive element, as does belief. Belief can be swayed or destroyed by contrary evidence and doubt, but faith is ever secure because it is direct perception of truth. Once the world was believed to be flat, but with the progress of science it was found to be round. So that was only a belief, which had to be given up. But faith cannot be contradicted, for it is the developed expression of the unerring intuition within us which brings us face to face with theretofore unseen realities. One may thus rightly refer to blind belief, but not blind faith. The soul's realization of truth expresses itself to us through intuition, and the resultant knowing is faith. Intuition is that point wherein a conviction suddenly changes into the direct perception of the truth of that belief. It requires no intermediary, no proof from the testimony of the senses or reason. For example, how do you know you exist? You know because you know. There is no doubt. Nothing in this world would make you believe otherwise. Even if you were paralyzed and could not see yourself, still you would feel or experience your existence through the perception of the soul. Faith is the ABCD of intuition. It is a deep feeling of knowing within you. Most everyone has experienced a hunch that has come true. That is a manifestation of developing or uncontrolled intuition. Intelligence directed to the outward world interprets phenomena. Faith turned inwardly interprets by its contact with noumena the intuitions of the soul. All things can be brought to light by the power of faith. In calmness, intuition gives birth to faith. The Sanskrit word for faith is wonderfully expressive. It is visvas. The common literal rendering to breathe easy, have trust, be free from fear, does not convey the full meaning. Sanskrit svas refers to the motions of breath, implying thereby life and feeling. Vi conveys the meaning of opposite, without. That is, he whose breath, life, and feeling are calm, he can have faith born of intuition. It cannot be possessed by persons who are emotionally restless. The cultivation of intuitive calmness requires unfoldment of the inner life. When developed sufficiently, intuition brings immediate comprehension of truth. You can have this marvelous realization. Meditation is the way. Meditate with patience and persistence. In the gathering calmness, you will enter the realm of soul intuition. Throughout the ages, those beings who attained enlightenment were those who had recourse to this inner world of God communion. Jesus said, "When thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly." Go within the self, closing the door of the senses and their involvement with the restless world, and God will reveal to you all his wonders. In the inner communion of the soul with God, intuition begins to unfold naturally. Initially, a sort of provisional trust is necessary. Know that God is with you and that you are his child, made in his image. Surrender to him through love. That conviction will gradually transform itself into faith through intuition. Beyond the senses and intellect, intuition manifests in the calm consciousness as feeling, perceived mostly through the heart. When such feeling comes in meditation, you receive through it a definite sense of right direction and unshakable conviction. Increasingly, you will be able to recognize and follow this intuition. That doesn't mean you give up reason. Calm, impartial reason can also lead to intuition. Use common sense. But remember that arrogant or emotional reasoning leads to misconceptions and mistakes. Reject the destructive element in doubt and belief and apply the constructive element. March on to the kingdom of faith. This is the way of development. In the calmness of meditation, your consciousness will be able to focus on truth and understand. In that state, faith develops. Through unfolding intuition, you receive the evidence of things not seen.